The original Enzo from Bitfenix was pretty decent, although it had one big drawback, which is mainly front airflow. It was basically a big wall of plastic, which in a case that supported a full 360mm radiator at the front, really wasn't that great. This though is the mesh version. Obviously they've replaced that big wall of plastic at the front with, well, mesh. Airflow is definitely improved here, although the rest of the case, corner cutting included, really hasn't improved all that much. We've still got real tempered glass and it's still selling for about £85. So it's pretty interesting. The mesh panel is only held on by magnets, so you can remove it fairly easily by pulling on the bottom. This is the closest you get to a dust filter, by the way, so bear that in mind. Now, the front supports up to a 360mm radiator, or obviously 3 120mm fans, or up to 280mm as well at the upper side. And then on the top, you have up to a 240mm radiator, or again, 2 120mm. With some interesting attachments, you have a mesh panel, which is semi-dust filter-esque, although it's not that great. And then you have a blanking panel. I'm not too sure why you'd want that in a case that is pretty well shut off, but it's there if you want it, it comes included. The cost-cutting measures on the case include the rear PCIe slots, where instead of having an inset portion with the screws inside the case and having a nice easy way to go about installing a graphics card or whatever else, these ones are, the screws are on the outside and the slots are flush with the rear of the case. This is, as I said, a cost-cutting measure so that they don't have to press a section in of the rear panel. It can just be nice and flush, but it means that getting a graphics card in and out can be pretty difficult and generally a little bit more cumbersome and annoying than a, I guess, more premium case. Now, there are definitely a number of even cheaper cases like the Coolmaster MB511, which sell for £75, which I get is not actual tempered glass, whereas this one is, but at the same time, it's a much more premium and overall better build quality and better premium feel case than this one for less money. There are definitely a few nice things though. The front RGB has stayed, so you get a semi-subtle but still quite nice looking RGB element on the front, with obviously surrounding that nice new airflow panel. And then you can also use a button on the top to control that, whether you want it in a static mode or pulsing, or if you want to use your motherboard to control both it and the rear 120mm RGB fan. That can all be done with the small controller on the back, and then either using, as I said, the button at the top or the 4-pin standard RGB header. Speaking of the top, we should take a look at the I/O. It's pretty simple. There's 2 USB 3 ports, headphone and microphone jacks, and the RGB power and reset buttons up there, as well as a few LEDs for power and hard drive activity. Utility wise, you actually have a removable dust filter on the side of the case for the power supply. In theory, this is amazing because it means that it's much easier for you to get at the power supply dust filter and means that you can more easily clean it, swap it out and all that sort of stuff. But in practice, and like a lot of this case, the actual bracket itself for the dust filter is made from pretty cheap plastic, and the tolerances really aren't that great, which means it's actually pretty difficult to get in and out smoothly, and it's a very kind of janky procedure, so bear that in mind. And as I said, that does kind of translate to a lot of the parts of the case. That theme actually continues for a number of elements, including even the foam that's on the lip of the case that's meant to stop the tempered glass from being scratched by the metal of the case. The top portion of that is actually not attached or not applied straight, so it's actually bowed in the middle and meant that there was actually fluff hanging off the bottom. And also, speaking of the kind of fit and finish, the power supply was actually almost impossible to install for 2 separate reasons. First of all, the hard drive cage really doesn't give you much room in the bottom there, and it's riveted down as opposed to screwed, which means that you can't fit basically any long power supply. The RM850 that I wanted to use in here, far too long for this case. The Cougar VS 450 that I'm using only just fit in, and even then there really isn't that much space on the back for cable management, so bear that in mind. The second reason was actually that the rubber standoffs that are used to keep the power supply from being scratched by the case, or vice versa, those are actually too tall for any power supply to fit on, which means all of the 4 rear mounting holes were far too high, and I had to basically press down from through a small hole in the power supply shroud to be able to get the power supply screwed in and installed. Besides the trouble with the power supply, actually building in the case was pretty much trouble-free, which is great to see. There wasn't any motherboard standoff tools included in the accessories, so I had to use my iFixit kit to get the standoffs installed. But otherwise, once that that's all in. I really didn't have that much trouble. There's actually a fair bit of room on the back of the case as well for cable management, so while you don't get much in the power supply area, you do get some on the back, which is great to see. You also get that little RGB controller, which is actually attached wonky, but either way, it's still there if you want to use it for controlling, obviously, as I said, the front of the case and any RGB fans from Bitfenix that you want to add. So rambling over, what's the verdict then? Well, if the airflow was the only issue that you had with the original Enso case, and that was the only thing stopping you from buying it, then this one is much improved and I highly recommend it to you. If, however, you want a little bit better fit and finish, a little bit better kind of quality feel, especially in some of the plastics that are used here, then there are a number of options at the same or even lower prices that may be better suited for you. It's still a good case though, especially with the real tempered glass. It gives a nice quality feel to it, although as I said, there are some fit and finish and plastic quality issues and stuff like that that means that it's not for me personally. Would I put this on my desk? Not really. That's it's not really my style. And personally, I don't actually like tempered glass cases that much anyway, because the majority of them have this sort of mounting method of 4 screws that just kind of hold it on, and that's just not for me. But if you do like tempered glass, if you want some a nice stylish case with now pretty decent airflow and can hold a fair amount of hardware as well, then this could be a decent option for you. So you've heard my thoughts. I would love to hear yours in the comments down below. Is this a case that's now interesting to you because of the revised airflow, or does the fit and finish really kind of bother you a bit too much and you like to go with even a lower priced offering or a higher priced one? Let me know in the comments down below. I would love to hear from you. If you want to pick one of these cases up, or you just want to check out the price when and where you watch this, then feel free to take a look at the link in the description down below. That will take you to your local Amazon store where you can see all of that sort of stuff and kind of make a decision if it's worth it for you or not. Otherwise, if you want to support this channel and keep me making these videos on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday basis, then take a look at the links in the description down below. There's Amazon, OverclockersUK affiliate links, there's Patreon, you can buy hoodies like this one, or non-TechteamGB related designs. There's also a load of other stuff. There's Bitcoin donations, because people have asked for that before. There's a Humble Bundle, private internet access, which is a great and cheap VPN, and a load of other stuff, so feel free to go check that out. If you want to see other videos, I'll leave them over there. I'll leave my original review of the Enzo over there as well if you want to check that one out, as my opinion kind of has changed a bit on it. But either way, feel free to take a look at that. And otherwise, thanks for watching. If you've got any questions, leave those in the comments down below, and we'll see you all in the next video.